before the break, we set up a basic Sinatra website. This had a connection to a database where we were storing blog posts. We made it so we could list the blog posts, we could go to individual blog posts, and we had a form, which we don't have a link to yet. A form where we can create blog posts. And behind the scenes, we were using this SQLite DB thing, which is where it stores it all. It's a big file of junk. Somewhere in here is our data, but we never really look directly in it. Instead, what we do is we load Active Record, which is a part of Rails, which we just kind of like popped out and used here. We tell it where to find that database. We tell it this magical line that tells it there's going to be a table called post. And that's how it creates this Ruby object that we can talk to. We can use this post object to get all of the data or all of the posts, to create a new post, to find an individual post. Basically everything we want to do with posts we do through this object. But that post object takes normal strings as its inputs and outputs, so we can connect it to the rest of our Sinatra app the same way we did with Twitter and Flickr and anything else. That we can put things in variables and do a .each on them, or we can create things by passing in strings. In this case, we got the strings from the params because we had a form, and when the form submit, it put the fields into the params, and we pulled them back out. And that is about everything we got. Alright, one random thing that came to mind when I was walking around. So you'll probably notice this is all very confusing, like each bit when I say it kind of makes sense, but then 5 minutes later you're like, how does this all fit together? So my recommendation would be to focus on the patterns and not worry too much about like understanding it all. So it's like, I don't know, if later on you do this, or you type out this and it breaks, and you go, oh, why is it broke? Like compare it to the previous thing and go, okay, what did we type and when and why? So again, later on when you're trying to like, okay, I need to make a listing page, how did I do it? I had the post page. I don't really know why I did this, but it seemed reasonable. And I put it in a variable. And to kind of like work through that piece by piece. So instead of like being so deep into like, okay, how did this connect to like, I had the Firefox thing, how did this connect to Firefox and why did we use the Firefox thing? It's more like, okay, there's this post thing, and when I do all, I get all the posts. So when I do create, it creates a post, and when I do find, it finds a post. So it's like, look at each individual small pattern. And it's like every time I have a table, I need to copy paste this thing. I don't really know why I have to copy and paste this bit, but I know if I don't have this, it doesn't work. And that's certainly in the beginning a really good way to do it, of like, kind of compare if you have a working version and a non-working version, just kind of look at like, okay, well what is there? So if you go through your non-working version later and go, hang on, I never put this post thing anywhere, maybe I should put it in my new one. Try putting it in the new one and then suddenly it works. I hope. Okay, so yes, and we're going to do this several times over and over and over again, so don't worry too much about it not coming together, because it will eventually. What was the third one? Okay, and the next one is quite a minor one, because it came up earlier before the break. It's just a little Sinatra thing. So if I go to posts, everything works. If I go to post/1, everything works. If I delete the 1, everything breaks. Because I told it I want to match /posts, and the URL is now posts/. I could add a slash here, but oops, and it works. But nowadays doesn't work. So there's a neat little Sinatra trick. This is like totally just one little trick we're gonna do and then move on. You can put a question mark after the ending slash, and that makes it optional. So now posts without the slash works, and posts with the slash works. It's not really connected to anything in the topic we're doing today, it's just kind of neat.
The question mark makes the thing before?
Yeah, it makes it optional. I don't know how much optional you can make. This is usually the only place I end up using it.
Or you could make star and then put it in and override also the new. So.
Yep, star would be like, I'll take everything, which could lead to weird side effects.
I think plus was 1 or 1.
I think this isn't quite a full regular expression. It's like just part of Sinatra's thing. Okay, I'm going to take a brief look through my script to see what I'm supposed to do next. So there's about 12 different things. I'm kind of trying to decide what order to put them in. Yeah, let's do the edit pages. Okay, so we have actually, let's do some boring stuff first. Let's just put in a new link. At the moment, it's really annoying to move around all the pages. So let's just, at the bottom of the index page, put a link to the new page. Just to make it a bit easier to get around. Okay, but other than that, we can create new blog posts, but we currently can't edit them. We can do it through the SQLite manager thing, which works, but is obviously not very useful for real users. We can also do it on Tux. So yeah, if you guys type this as well. So post equals post.last. And so right now the post title is new. I'm going to do post.title equals old. And you guys put in whatever is appropriate. So I've got it. Actually, so one thing it's a tiny bit different, but not very different. I can do x equals 1 plus 1. In this case, it's like, instead of x, it's the title that's inside post. So it's like, instead of changing this thing, it's like go in the box and look in the thing for the thing to change. If that makes sense. But it's still, in general, title is well, okay. In this case, it's not strictly a variable, but it's a thing that's pretending to be a variable. It's a little strange. But we can use it as if it was a variable and do equals. Okay, the next bit is actually very important. So I just changed it. Oh, here we go. So in theory, this new should change to old. Right? If I reload, no it didn't. Because, how to explain this? So, there is the Ruby, wait, how to explain it? So there's the database and it exists on its own and it knows nothing about Ruby. So if we change stuff in Ruby land, it doesn't know until I do post.save. And at that point, the active record takes the stuff from Ruby land and sends it to the database. And that's quite an important thing, because it's easy to forget and you change stuff and it never makes a difference on the other side because you forgot to save. I noticed when I hit save, suddenly it started printing out all this SQL stuff, because that's it saying, okay, now I'm actually going to update these fields to blah blah blah. But in general, that's how we edit a thing in the database with Ruby. That we get it from the database, like we find the right one, we change it just like it's normal Ruby variables, but then we hit save to say, go do this thing. Actually, I'll just demonstrate that again. And the reason why it's a problem is if I do this, that if I try and do it all in one line, it's going to get it with .last, it's going to change it with title, but because I have I can't, because I didn't put it in a variable to try and save it, I have nothing to do .save on, because the previous line kind of ran and then vanished. Okay, but so somehow we need to cram this whole thing into the Sinatra app. How to do this? Okay, I'm going to do it the horrible brute force way, mostly so that we don't forget the thing that happened. Okay, so maybe let's just type this bit and then we'll explain what's going on. Oh, it should be ID. Post equals post.find. So we're going to do the same params find thing we did before. In this case, I'm just going to fix it to something. I'm not really going to take it from the params just yet because I just want to see it work. So eventually we want to have a nice edit form that users can type in. But right now, whatever post we try and edit, it's just going to get its title changed to updated. Later on, we will make it better. And we need to save. And we need the same redirect. Okay, so lots of typing and then some more explaining. roughly there. So I don't know, pick a random post. Post 7, so now when I go to slash, oh, can I get all this on the screen? Now when I go to slash update, so it's going to match the URL slash post slash something slash update, which this is, post slash 7 slash update. It's going to look in the URL for that ID, get us the post, change the title to updated, save it, and then redirect us back to the show page. Ta-da. Alright, so did all of that generally make sense so far? Okay, let's make it a bit nicer, because we don't want to always set it to updated. We want to pull from the params the title, and the same from the body. That means when we do update, we do question mark body equals changed, and title equals hello. And yeah, in case you forget this syntax, it's question mark, or it always starts with a question mark, and then it's like A equals B, and C equals D, and this equals that, and this equals that. So there's always an and between them. But it doesn't need the and at the front, and if you only had one, you don't need an and at all. But it's always a question mark at the beginning.
So the order doesn't matter?
Nope. Yeah, it'll, because it always ends up in params, and then you pull it out at random. And if you hit go, we should see that data goes in. And this is, well, it's not there. There's kind of a good example how we don't, like, again, I mentioned yesterday, the form is split into the display of the form and the processing of the form. Like, this is us doing the processing side without ever having had a form. It's like we're typing in what would the form have created if it existed. Oh, that didn't work. Posted, see it? Did that land?
You put post title twice.
Yeah, because I am dumb. Yeah, this is actually probably the hardest thing about programming, is just not making typos. It happens forever. Where did it go? Okay, that works. Okay, so everybody get it working? Oh, whatever. Or was it out?
Do you have to update slash and then title and body?
It should be slash post slash 7 slash update.
Yeah, and then slash title to update.
No, question mark.
Question mark.
I'll just about that?
And, should we like if we just give over, well, okay, we're gonna make the form anyway, so, but like if we, right now, if we just give one parameter, the other one will be set to empty, so.
Yeah, right now this isn't terribly good because it will break. I think we could do if. Oh, which bit? If you just type tux, it should come up. Yep. So I think we could put this afterwards. It's pretty optional. Later on, when we get to Rails, it has its own better way of doing this. But this is easier to understand, so I'm gonna use the rubbish way. So if I just go to update, yeah, it shouldn't blank anything out. Okay, and that nil thing is a good way of just checking, is this thing empty? Are you caught up, or do you want half a second?
Did you just add something?
I added something, but it's not really important. That's just fiddling. Okay, is everyone ready to move on to the
I
form?
think that broke it for me.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you should say it.
Okay. 33 minutes. Alright. So we got the update working, and this is like the bit that processes the form, so obviously we need to have the form. So again, boring typing, then we come back, /post/id /edit do end. Oops. Nope, not create. Edit. And I think that's right. Okay. Maybe take the show page and just save it as edit. So, I'll put the word edit at the top. So we'll make a form in a second, but for the moment let's just have it print out the data just to check that we've got the right stuff. Oops, not that. So all in all, it should look like this. So /post/edit, an edit ERB with some basic content, and then when you go to post/7/edit or whatever number, it'll look the same as the show page, but that's just the foundation.
The form and leave the text inside the form.
So we want to have the data from the existing, like, what's it, post. Alright, so now that's definitely working. Let's actually just be lazy and copy from the new page, the whole thing. form, or just shove it down the bottom, but make sure and change create to, oh, I guess this has to be, it has to be the post ID, post.id slash update. And again, we're going to put this together piece by piece, so the first versions are going to be kind of messy, and then we'll make it nicer. Hold on, get this back. So yeah, go on display edit, we can leave these here. So the inside of the form is still totally identical, it's just this action that is changed. And it should look like this. Oh, wait. All good?
I think I renamed this one. Show to edit.
Alright, and hopefully, so this will 50% work, that if you put in a new title, so one thing you'll notice, I'm on post 7, when I click this I should end up still on the show page at post 7 with the new title. So it's like halfway there. So everyone try that, make sure it works.
Can you show again?
Yep. Run this chunk.
Unless they work anymore.
Hmm?
The unless nil didn't work anymore. Like if I didn't put a value also. And it's, I know it worked before.
I think maybe it's not nil, it's because it's, oh, so nil means
Oh.
really empty. I think it's getting a
It's
string.
getting a space, empty space.
Yes. We'll fix it later. The general principle was
Yeah.
along those lines.
Leave my show, so my show.
Yeah, I did it to work again, and it's not working.
Oh, it
So you should check something else.
should be the same as the edit page.
Yeah, okay, except for just the top.
It's literally just these two lines. Is yours exploding?
I think I misunderstood the
Also, this gets a lot easier in Rails, actually. We're doing the very, very, very scenic route to really like break it down into what is happening. Rails, you get the reverse problem that it all works immediately, but you don't really have any idea what it's doing. Alright, so what is the next bit? So we're on the edit page. Oops. And it does like functionally work, but it's a bit rubbish because like we're printing out the title above the form, but the form itself is blank. What would be much nicer is if it like pre-fills this thing. So it's pre-filled, like I don't know, if you go to Facebook and edit your profile, it's remembered what you had before. So let's get that done a bit step by step. So first thing is these form fields have a value attribute. So let's just fill it in with some random value. Oops. And now when I load the edit page, it pre-fills the field with that value. So again, 50% of the way there. Obviously, having a pre-filled with a random value is not so useful, but because we can print out stuff with Ruby into the HTML, we can tell it print out the title, which you can only sort of see now. And the same for the body. And all this syntax is quite fiddly but also important, so it needs to be no spaces here, then a speech mark, percent equals, and the percent, speech mark, closey thing. Yeah, and don't forget the equals is one of the more common. Oops. Oh crap. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so if you get that working, then when you reload it, we have it pre-filled with whatever it really was. Okay, which also means we can delete the thing at the top, because we don't really need it. So at the top we were printing out the H1 post title, post body, but we don't really need it anymore because it's in the form fields. Post. And so that kind of ties it all together a bit. So now we say edit post, new title has been edited. When I hit submit, bish bash bosh, I end up back on post 7, but now with the new title.
Can we put comments into the RB?
Annoyingly, no-ish, sort of, yes.
HTML comments.
Yeah, so you can put in HTML comments. Actually, yeah, it's just maybe in the beginning that's the right way to do it. This is for whatever. So I guess it's not the end of the world, but it means that comment will still appear in the HTML. Oh, is that right? Wait. So I guess that's probably okay for the moment if you're taking notes. Like long term, ideally you want a comment to not be displayed anywhere. I don't know, I think for that you need to do this, which is like pretty weird. So it's going to interpret it as Ruby, but then interpret the Ruby as nothing. And it goes away. So that's kind of strange. But I think, yeah, just sticking with normal HTML comments is okay. HTML comments are weird anyway. They're like too many letters. Okay, and then I think that's pretty much it for today. Obviously we need to start putting in actually maybe let's do that as the last thing. On the show page, if you still have it, let's put in a link to the edit page. And again with kind of the letting the program be dumb in a way, that none of these parts have to know they're connected. That, like, we don't have to worry about like, how do I create an URL to this thing if it's coming from the database, and then if it's connected to da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like at one point we've told the server RB there's going to be an URL /post/something/edit. So as long as somehow we can generate that piece of text, it works. And at that point, it's not worried about databases or anything. It just knows ID is a number and tries to print it out. So it prints it out, you get the number, you get the URL. So if I click edit, you should go straight to the right edit page. And that means the site kind of half functions now, that we can click a random post, we get the show page, we can click edit, tux, edited later, I click submit, and it goes. We still need a few like nicer URLs to make it all work. And obviously it needs the entire rest of the site, but like the general, like the core of it is there. And again, this gets much, much faster in Rails. We're doing it the super slow way, so building a whole site this way will take weeks, whereas in Rails it takes like a day or so. Or all of this in Rails would have taken like 20 minutes. Okay. So again, we're going to go over this tomorrow. There's more features, there's more stuff. For this afternoon, so the basic exercise is to redo the same thing, but with products instead of posts. You can also pick some other words like to do or whatever, but it's basically just do the same thing. I will rewrite this over lunch to be a bit more coherent. It kind of is a bit of a mishmash of two different things at the moment. There was a link. This is week2 copy. Okay. So the guide to use, where did it go? Oh, let's put this over here. So this guide, which you can't really see on the monitor, this guide goes into quite a lot more detail, but it's the same stuff. There is one minor difference if you're reading his one, that he uses these rake migrations. We created the database stuff straight in SQL Manager. He uses these migrations, which is another thing from Rails which we're going to use tomorrow, but for now we can skip it. Yeah, so they're good, but they're a little bit complicated. And I think for the most part, otherwise he does everything the same as we do. Towards the end it gets a little bit crazy. He uses these helper things, which are neat. They're not terribly complicated, so give those a go as well. It's something we haven't done, but it's not terribly crazy. Admittedly, towards the end, he goes, okay, here's the rest, just copy paste it, which is like 10 pages of stuff. Minor other thing, he gets towards these post requests, which are neat, and we're going to come across them again later. He says to use them, so if you're following the tutorial, just use them. But it's just a different kind of request. So basically, don't worry about it being different. We're going to explain eventually. He uses a layout, which is neat. And random helper. By the time you get to the delete button stuff, it all got a bit weird, and the validations we're going to do tomorrow. So yeah, basically you can use this as a reference. I'm going to try and make this a bit more step-by-steppy so you can follow these as the steps, and then if you get stuck, this explains stuff. And there's 2 other tutorials that cover the same things. Actually, there's 4 of them. Whereas this didn't save all my changes. That's quite irritating. Alright, I will need to find. There were 2 more links that have gone. Sinatra. Active record. Yeah, this is a good one. So this one is quite good as well. Oh, where's it gone? Again, same topic, step by step. He stops quite a lot shorter. But again, sometimes the stuff that's confusing, it's good to read it from like different authors, because maybe the way that I phrase it makes sense to one person but not to the next, and vice versa. The next author will phrase it in a way that makes sense to you but not to the other person. So sometimes like the first 2 of these you'll read make no sense, and then you read this one and you're like, okay, that clears it up. But it's the same general topic, and again these guys use rake tasks. Minor thing you maybe forget, this guy uses shotgun, which is like the Sinatra reloader but different. So you can leave it out because we have the Sinatra reloader working. Okay, but that's the gist. Exercises. These are things to click on when you get stuck. The active record querying thing has, I don't know, too much to read through. It's worth taking like a quick scan over. Like, okay, ordering, if I want to know about ordering, I can take a quick look. It's more just to know what exists. But again, it's pretty crazy, so you don't want to look at everything. Conditions. Yeah. Okay.
It's a bit hard to know sometimes what it means, but if we don't know what ordering means.
Or like what order. Well, I think that's kind of almost what I mean. Like if you just skim through it, some stuff will just pop out of like, oh, okay. But because it's so big, it's impossible to look, or people will link to stuff, which is kind of annoying. But you'll see in examples the same, like 5 or 10 things come up over and over again, like first and last. That you don't really learn it by looking at the reference. It's like you kind of just pick it up because you see it so often. And I think that is about it.